Hi guys, my name is Christine and I'm a dating, relationship and personal development coach. And today I'm talking about what motivates someone to come back to you. So what are the reasons then that an ex may come back into your life, or it could be someone that was once interested but no longer is. What motivates those people to come back into your life, right? What is their motivations? Okay, so I've got a bunch here that I would love to get into with you. And the first one is the fear of losing you, okay? So if, for example, you've gone into the no contact rule, right, and you started to apply no contact, then, if they haven't heard from you in a while and you're no longer putting in the effort, you're no longer messaging them, initiating the conversations, right? If they love you and they care about you, they will become fearful, right? And they will be scared of losing you. So sometimes one of the biggest reasons why someone comes back into your life and motivates them to come back is because they're afraid that they've lost you and they want you back, right? And they want to try and reconcile things because they're afraid. They're afraid that you're gone for good, right? So a lot of it actually stems from fear, the fear of losing you because you are so important to them, okay? So another reason that motivates someone to come back to you is now that they've had time and space to think about how they feel about you. So now that you've gone into no contact and you haven't been speaking for for a long time, they've now had the time and space to think about you and to think about how they feel about you. So one of the biggest mistakes that people do when they've been broken up with or when someone has started to lose interest is they feel like they need to do more. So that means they're messaging more, you're trying to get their approval more, basically just trying to do more to try and fix the situation. But actually the best thing to do when someone has lost interest in you and has dumped you, essentially, if they've done any of those two things, then the best thing to do is to actually give them time and space. Okay, to not message them, right? To go into no contact, right? Because that will give them then time to think and to miss you, right? Because it's very hard to miss someone if you're constantly in contact with them. If each time they open their phone, they see they've got another notification from you, right? It's very hard to miss someone if you're doing that all the time, okay? So the best thing to do is to give them lots and lots of space and to go into no contact for a while, to not speak to them, obviously, unless they reach out to you first. If they reach out to you, then that's good. It means that they're starting to miss you. But if they're not reaching out to you, they're not talking to you, right? Maybe you've even messaged them and they've ghosted you. The best thing to do is to do nothing, right? To go into no contact and say absolutely zilch. Okay, and basically if they love you and they care about you, what will motivate them to come back is now that they've had that time and space, they've had time to think and to think, oh yeah, actually I do miss that person, or I do have feelings for that person, right? And then they'll reach out, then they'll get in contact with you, then they'll come back into your life. So that's another thing that motivates someone to come back to you. They've had time and space, they've felt your absence, and now they're motivated to come back because they miss you, right? And they've had time to think about it. Okay, so it's really important that you give someone time to think about you by going into no contact. If there's someone, let's say it's someone that you've dated and they lost interest, or it's someone like an ex who dumped you. Okay, it's good to give them time, space to think about it, because if they do have that time and space to think about it and they start to miss you, they will reach out. Okay, so another thing that motivates someone to come back to you is if there's still a strong feeling of love and physical attraction. So we can't help who we're attracted to, right? And we often also can't help who we love and adore and things like that either. Okay, so if they still have those strong feelings of love and attraction for you, that's going to pull them back. Because if you think of the word attraction in general, right, what does that mean? Well, if you think about magnets, then they attract, right? So, and you can keep them quite far apart, right? And they'll still be attracted to each other, right? So what that means then is that if they still feel attracted to you, if they still have that feeling of love towards you and physical attraction, then no matter what, they will be pulled back to you in some form, right? They will come back to you. And that's another thing that will motivate someone to come back. Even if they're not consciously aware of it, right? If they've still got that attraction for you, they can't help but be pulled back to you, okay? So that's another thing that will motivate someone to come back to you, okay? So the last point that I want to get into, and the last point about what motivates someone to come back to you, is it could be a lot to do with nostalgia, right? And wanting to be around the familiar, right? Because they had this relationship with you, they had this bond with you, right? And they may start to miss it. They may start to miss the old times of when they were with you, right? And that will pull them to come back, right? That will make them want to come back into your life, right? Because they are missing you. They are missing those times they spent with you. And some of the reasons why someone may come back to you is because that they're looking back at the relationship with rose-colored glasses and nostalgia, right? And they miss that. They miss their life with you, right? And that's something else that will motivate them to come back to you. If they feel you and they have that deep nostalgia and that desire to come back because it's familiar to them and it feels comfortable to them, okay? So another thing that you need to keep in mind though, and this is a bit of a disclaimer here, is that if someone has dumped you, if someone has lost interest in you, then sometimes that's nature's way, right? Nature's way of saying to you that this person isn't right for you, right? So it's a good idea that you look back at the relationship too, right? And you look back on, not just the good things, but also the bad things too, because sometimes we look back on things with nostalgia, right? And that makes us want to go back to that person. But if you really look through the relationship, if you really go through the experiences you had with them with a fine-tooth comb, right, what you'll find is that there was actually a lot of bad. And mostly, if you got broken up with, most of the things that happened probably weren't that great. They probably were bad, right? Especially towards the end of the relationship, right? It kind of all just went downhill. And that's what you'll find with most romantic relationships that end, right? This is what, because generally in a healthy relationship, right? In a healthy relationship, the beginning, yes, is very good, right? It's a very good time, your honeymoon period, lots of kissing, lots of touching, lots of dates, things like that. It's amazing, right? It's brilliant. It's a lovely time when you first start getting to know someone. But what happens is that it gets better over time, right? That relationship, that love grows stronger, right? Now, of course, in the honeymoon period, like I said, there's a lot of touching, a lot of kissing. Sometimes that slows down. But the love and the admiration and the respect for the other person goes up, okay? And that's what happens in long-term healthy relationships that last the test of time. It gets better with time, right? In relationships that don't work, everything was really amazing at the beginning, but it was only amazing at the beginning. And basically what happened is that it slowly went downhill, right? Or even quickly downhill, okay? And what happens is we tend to look at the past with nostalgia, right? So you think back on when it was really good when you first met, but you don't look at what was bad when things were going downhill. And especially when you got to really near the bottom and there was probably a lot of arguments, perhaps you were thinking of a way out too before you got dumped or whatever it may be, right? But because we're looking at only the good stuff and we're only looking at how good it was at the beginning, that often draws us back. So what you've got to realize and try and think about is, was this a relationship that was only good at the beginning, right? Was it like downhill from the moment you met, essentially, okay? Now, of course, you probably had some good times in between that, but overall, was it a downhill trend or an uphill trend like the healthy relationship? Now, if it was an uphill trend, then that's great, because maybe you broke up because of a huge misunderstanding, like perhaps they thought you had cheated on them when you hadn't, or vice versa, or perhaps someone came in between you guys, perhaps there was like a middle person that kind of ruined the relationship and kind of was like betting each other, like, I don't know, kind of manipulating the whole thing, trying to pin you two against each other, that sort of thing. Right, so if that kind of thing happened and it happened because of a huge misunderstanding or a third party got involved and started to try and wreck things, then, but overall it had an uphill trend, then yeah, sure, try and attract this person. If this person comes back into your life, great, then accept them back with open arms. But if you really go back through the relationship and you find that actually it was only good at the beginning and overall it was a downhill trend that led to the ultimate breakup, then it's not a good idea to get back with that person, okay? So you've got to be very aware of those things, okay? Be acutely aware. Don't just look at the good stuff, look at the bad stuff too, right? And that may not be a very nice thing to do, but ultimately it could save you from a lot of trouble, because sometimes what happens when two people get back together is the breakup just happens again eventually anyway, because both people realize that nothing has actually changed. And basically you just end up in the same old relationship, and the downhill trend continues, and you just keep on breaking up and getting back together and breaking up and getting back together. And it's just a huge waste of time and a lot of heartache, stress and turmoil, right? Which obviously isn't good for your overall health. So thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to get in touch with me personally and you'd like coaching with me, then please go to www.ChristineLoveridge.com, and I shall talk to you again very soon. Bye-bye.